For the record, look how scripted this video is. Let's do this. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Brent, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should, because I normally talk about geeky things, and today we're going to talk about my favorite thing ever. Disney. I was raised a Disney fan by Disney fans. As a matter of fact, my parents left their 1-year-old daughter on her birthday with her aunts to go to Disney World with their firstborn. That was me. I was the 1-year-old. I'm okay. My first trip to Disney World, however, was when I was 6 years old. We had won a trip to Disney World because we had the best Christmas light display in the city of Pequot Lakes. That was before people started setting their Christmas light displays to music. So had that been a thing back then, we would have lost. Something else that a lot of people know about me is that I studied film history in college. Well, I technically still am. My education is complicated. So when you're a Disnerd and you study film history, you study people like Hitchcock and the Marx Brothers. Wait. Well, okay, so I studied them too. But I also took a lot of my time to study Walt Disney and the Disney Company. So I thought it'd be fun for us to kind of sit down and have a chat about the eras of Disney. There are 7 distinct eras of Disney films. Walt Disney has been making their animated films since 1937, and they've been the studio to beat, so back off DreamWorks. But seriously, in order to talk about Disney's history, we do have to talk about DreamWorks. So if you're a DreamWorks fan, stay tuned because we're going to be talking about the origin of that company as well. So the first era of Disney is called the Golden Age. The Golden Age starts with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and ends with Bambi. It's called the Golden Age because this is where Disney really set his first 2 huge records. The Disney Company was the first company to make a feature-length animated film with Snow White. You're welcome, DreamWorks. Everyone thought he was absolutely insane for even attempting this feat. They thought that it'd be too much work. They thought that nobody would want to go and see a feature-length cartoon. Well, they were wrong about people wanting to see it. It was a lot of work. Disney did this anyway, and it was immensely popular. According to this, it made $184,925,486, and in today's money, that would be over $1 billion of revenue. Needless to say, Disney hit a gold mine with this, and stayed pretty much uncontested for a long time. Looking at you, Spielberg and Don Bluth. Note, I don't actually hate these companies, it's just kind of fun to poke fun at them while I'm talking about the history of Disney. I actually really appreciate older DreamWorks, and I really love Don Bluth films. So don't come at me. Amblin forever. Land Before Time. Love it. However, lightning doesn't always strike twice, at least right away. Disney's follow-up films with Pinocchio and Fantasia were nowhere near as popular. As a matter of fact, Disney lost a ton of money with Fantasia. I guess people weren't ready for a feature-length animated film that was completely scored with no dialogue. That's okay, Sorcerer Mickey, I still love you. Oddly enough, this actually became the mascot for a lot of things Disney related for many years, while Fantasia was universally hated. But it's Mickey. And it's the best Mickey. Dumbo, which was originally supposed to be a short, was one of the few Disney films that actually saved the Disney Company. Walt decided to make it a feature-length film to see if he could make back some of the money that he lost so he could continue killing parents and separating parents from their children and breaking young hearts for the next 76 years. And it worked. Dumbo breathed new life into the Disney Company. At least for a little while. That's the second record Disney hit. How quickly can you sink your own company? 3 years. 3 years is the answer, if you were wondering. It's 3 years. However, Disney knew what he was doing, and he was able to keep his company above water. The Golden Age was known for its darker storylines and more adult themes. Disney's intention was never to make feature-length animated films for children. As a matter of fact, Disney was quoted to say this about his company: "You're dead if you aim only for kids. Adults are only grown-up kids anyway." So these films with more adult themes, like the hunter going to kill Snow White and bring back her heart to the evil queen, or killing off Bambi's mom, or the heart-wrenching scene between Dumbo and his mother. All of these things were meant to attract an older audience, whether they had children or not. It's not even the films that were dark. As us pretentious film school students like to say, the mise en scène was also quite dark. And because it was animated, this was very, very purposeful. If you look at the landscape, they're gonna have rougher lines, and there are some scenes in these films that it feels like somebody forgot to turn on a light. But again, it was animated, so it was very, very purposeful. Disney knew what he was doing to elicit emotions like fear, sadness, and joy. And he used that knowledge to his advantage as he oversaw these films being made. He would give you a lighthearted scene, and then he would break your heart, and then he would cheer you up again. This was the formula for how these films were set up. A lot of these films broke a lot of molds, and they helped set up the Disney company that we know today. Snow White was our first Disney princess, and with 10 more to follow so far, ending with Merida from Brave, because Anna and Elsa are technically not Disney princesses. It's true, look it up, don't come at me. Dumbo was the first time an animal told a narrative, which led to films like Fox and the Hound, Oliver and Company, The Lion King, Zootopia. And Pinocchio was our first real literature to Disney animated film, which led to The Jungle Book and Fox and the Hound and Hunchback of Notre Dame, just to name a few. If you look at the Golden Age, you will see how each and every individual film really did help set up Disney as we know it today. The second era of Disney is the one that a lot of people sometimes don't even include or kind of forget exists, and that is the wartime era. The 1940s was a difficult time period for the whole world. Hitler decided that he was better than everybody else and decided to kill a whole bunch of people, which ignited the world into the Second World War. Because of this, Disney had less money and manpower to make his animated films, because a lot of his workers were actually deployed out into the wild blue yonder to fight in the World War, plus less people were just out seeing films at the time. This led to a whole slew of films that are so obscure that some of you may not even know they exist. As you may be able to tell, I'm not super familiar with this era myself, so as I list off the names of the films, excuse the phone. This era was comprised of 6 films, and they were Saludos Amigos, The Three Caballeros, Make Mine Music, Melody Time, Fun and Fancy Free, and The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. If you do enough research about this time period of Disney, you may not actually find much about the wartime era, just because a lot of people don't consider it an era of Disney because there wasn't much consistency with the films. And to create an era of films is kind of important, but it was Disney animated feature films over a length of time. So to true film historians, it still counts. It was during this time that Disney was commissioned to create wartime propaganda, so he created shorts and commercials with his characters, the most famous being Der Fuhrer's Face, which was originally titled Donald Duck in Naziland. So we have now hit the Silver Age of Disney. This era started with Cinderella and ended with The Jungle Book. It's also known as the Restoration Age of Disney because it marked Disney's journey back into big budget productions once again. It had super ornate landscapings and had a little bit more of a magical side to things. It was very well loved because of its more light-hearted storylines. Though tragedy still did strike, which would bring an end to the Silver Age and bring to life a new era of Disney films. And what is that tragedy, you might ask? The death of Walt Disney. Walt Disney died in 1966 during the production of The Jungle Book. So The Jungle Book was the last film that he had really any personal hand in creating. Though a lot of films that came from that were actually ideas that Disney had, he just didn't have a personal hand in actually creating them. Actually, Frozen being one of them. So back off, Frozen haters. Though his idea for Frozen was very, very different, and I don't think it was actually called Frozen. I think it was just called The Ice Queen. And I think it was more like The Ice Queen. The Bronze Age arose as the company began to decline again. After the death of Walt Disney, people feared that the Disney company would also die with him. They were afraid that things would change and that Walt's vision would be lost, which it was, but that's still a couple of eras away. This era started with the Aristocats and ended with Oliver and Company, and the best thing about the Bronze Age of Disney is that I was born during it. If you can guess which Disney film was made or was released the year I was born, you win. Probably nothing, because I'm still too poor for prizes. This era was much like the golden era of Disney, which focused on darker storylines, and they even used some really dark books to tell their stories, like The Fox and the Hound. If you don't want to hate everything, don't read that book. This era also brought forth new technology that would help make making animated features a lot easier. Instead of having to ink each individual cell, they could just print on each individual cell. But because of this, because of the way the technology worked back then, this era is also known for having really thick black lines, because that's just how this technology worked. Remember when I said that Dumbo was one of the few Disney films that helped save the company? Well, here's another one. The Great Mouse Detective was actually the next Disney film to help bring the company back from total annihilation. And while it's not part of the next era of Disney, it's the only reason us 90s kids have our favorite era of Disney ever. That's right, we have hit the Disney Renaissance. The Disney Renaissance started in 1989 with The Little Mermaid and ended right before the turn of the century. It brought forth some of the most famous Disney stories to date. The most famous, of course, being The Lion King, which is my personal favorite, and I will not apologize for being a basic Disney bitch, okay? This era saw the biggest success in box office history for Disney. The Lion King became the highest grossing animated feature film in film history. It was eventually dethroned, but it took nearly 20 years to do it. These films also became so popular that Broadway productions were eventually produced for some of them, like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, and Aladdin. I have seen 2 of them, and all I have to say is see them. A new computer system was created just to make The Lion King even possible. And huge strides were made by the Disney company because of this computer system. The company really flourished during this time. The second dark age, as others like to call it, the post-Renaissance era, started with a sequel to the film that tried to originally kill the Disney company to begin with, Fantasia 2000, because now people were ready for a feature-length animated film that was completely scored with no dialogue. Nope, still not ready. This is another huge decline within the Disney company, and the reason for this is actually DreamWorks. Remember when I said at the beginning, in order to talk about this, we'd have to talk about the creation of DreamWorks? Well, here it is. If you look at the original DreamWorks logo, you will see the letters S, K, and G. Those stand for Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen. These 3 created DreamWorks, and each one of them kind of headed up a different portion of the DreamWorks company. Jeffrey Katzenberg took on the animation portion of the company. But wait a second, where have I seen the name Jeffrey Katzenberg before? Oh, that's right, here. Jeffrey Katzenberg was actually head of animation for the Walt Disney Company during the Renaissance era. And as people who were around during the time like to say, he got a big head during that time because he single-handedly saved the Disney company. But because of his big head, he ended up losing his job and went off to create DreamWorks with Spielberg and Geffen, and gave Disney a run for their money. Disney really struggled without Katzenberg. A lot of the animators stood by Katzenberg and followed him to DreamWorks, and Katzenberg had some insider information on which films were coming down the pipeline. So while Disney was making The Emperor's New Groove, DreamWorks was making Road to El Dorado, and while Pixar was making Monsters Incorporated, DreamWorks was making Shrek. This was a battle that would rage on for many years between the 2 companies, and in a lot of situations, DreamWorks beat Disney out in the box office. The most successful film to come from this time period was Lilo and Stitch. While not my personal favorite, I tend to stay away from that era unless it's The Emperor's New Groove or Brother Bear. This was also the time period where I started getting a little bit older, so I figured I was just outgrowing Disney, but as it turned out, Disney was just struggling and lost sight of Walt's original vision, and they started making films that were more geared towards children, and they were so focused on taking down Katzenberg and DreamWorks with it, and Katzenberg and DreamWorks were pretty much feeling the same way. This era officially ended with Bolt in 2008. This has been quite the journey. We've covered 71 years of film, and we are still not done. We still have to talk about the current age of Disney. The Revival Age. The Revival Age is also known as the Second Disney Renaissance. John Lasseter took over head of animation in 2006, and Disney actually bought out Pixar instead of just helping them fund their projects. It started with Princess and the Frog in 2009, which would be our first Disney princess since Mulan over 10 years before that. Though this wasn't the first time Disney took a long break from Disney princesses, and probably won't be the last. This era is very familiar to fans because a lot of the formulas that were used in the original Renaissance era were used for this, which is why a lot of people can see the similarities between The Lion King and Frozen. in. While Disney seems to be moving towards 3D animation, with the exception of Princess and the Frog and the new Winnie the Pooh movie, a lot of the formulas are similar to those in the 1990s. And Frozen did eventually dethrone The Lion King as the highest grossing animated feature film in film history, and has been there for the last 5 years. We are still mid-revival, and with a new head of animation taking the helm soon, we might move into an even better era of Disney. But until that happens, enjoy the revival era of the Disney anime feature film franchise. Let me know in the comments below what surprised you most, what you guys already knew, and let me know what your favorite Disney animated films from each era are. Mine are Dumbo, I really don't have one from wartime, 101 Dalmatians, Great Mouse Detective, The Lion King, Emperor's New Groove, and Moana. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to help out this channel financially if you can. Links below to my Patreon and to my Ko-fi page. Again, let me know in the comments below all those things that I asked you, and that is pretty much it. Disney is my favorite thing to talk about. So if you ever want me to talk more about the history of Disney, Walt Disney himself, the Disney company, whatever, or just film history, I should probably just put my $40,000 to good use that I am still pursuing. I want to put that to good use. So if you guys want to know more about film history, let me know in the comments below. But other than that, that is all I've got for you guys today. So I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.